to see you. We all met, actually, on the line, thanks to technology. Everybody was calling in from different parts of the world, and we were collaborating as to how we'd like to talk about this very important, integral thing to our industry. So I'd like to kick things off in the context of where each of you are in our industry and what you're doing. There's so much data out there. How are you thinking about data as you incorporate it in your own role at your company? Emily, I'll start with you.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming. So yes, you're exactly right. There is so much data out there, especially about blockchain and crypto. One of the benefits of blockchain is that a lot of the data is transparent. That's kind of the whole point of blockchain, is that you can see transactions, that you can, it's very visible. The problem is that the average person doesn't necessarily know how to interpret that data. So one of the things that we're trying to do at Longhash is not only showcase that data and analyze that data, we try to extract trends and also tell stories about that data so that the average person or the average retail investor knows what the data means, and they know why they should care and why they should pay attention to it and what kind of things to look for inside the data.
Ulisse, how do you think about
This
it?
is Ulisse.
Actually, you don't need it. Oh, you've got your mic. It should be working. Do you hear Ulisse okay?
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys.
This is Ulisse from Chainalysis. At Chainalysis, we make the distinction between ground truth data, that is data we manually actually checked in the blockchain, and data that was generated through advanced algorithms and artificial intelligence. When we look at data in the blockchain, we mainly gather information by applying three heuristics. The first one is the co-span heuristic. That is, we're looking at a series of clusters, that is, a group of addresses that have the same inputs. The second one is behavioral, which basically means looking at not simply the structure of the addresses, but also the time in which transactions happen. And the third one is the one related to proprietary heuristics that we use to also have advanced information on open source intelligence, for example, and so on. So I believe that it's extremely important to make the distinction between data that is gathered manually and data that is gathered artificially with artificial intelligence. And you need a combination of both to reach very accurate data and avoid false positives or false negatives.
That's a great point. How are you thinking about it?
Matthew from Etherscan. So I'm just going to lead off and top off from what both of them just said. So I think when you're looking at data, I would like to classify it into two different sections. So you have data and you have information. So I think a lot of times we kind of mix both of these together and take data and information as one whole, one same segment. Again, going down right on a global level, right, so we have this data, which is actually just business of information. So what we do is we actually provide a lot of, I'd like to call raw data. So data that's kind of not really fully processed yet, but it's this raw data that feeds into organizations that are able to interpret this data and to be able to send it into information that's more digestible by main audience. So going back again, two different segments, your data providers and information distillers.
I totally agree with you. Forkast.News is actually only 6 months old, but I've been a 20-year veteran of this industry called journalism, that Emily and I share the same passion as journalists at our core. But you're absolutely right. It is data, and when I was at Bloomberg, I always said, same way that you were at Wall Street Journal, numbers don't lie, but the context is where it gets a little murky, and that's where the quality of the information, the quality of the purveyors of information, in being able to provide that very objective clarity and understanding and context, that is critical. So there's a lot of noise in our industry. And for those of us who are in the industry and are a little bit more media literate and knowing how the sausage is actually made, there's actually a lot of bad behaviors even among the purveyors of credible platforms. From the data part and from the information part. We all know this here on stage. How do each of you distinguish through your own protocols and your own platforms the good from the bad?
Yeah, that's, there's a lot of criticism right now about crypto media. You hear it all the time. Maybe because crypto is a relatively new industry, people tend to think that crypto media is not very reliable. So that's one of, as you said, one of the benefits of going directly to the data. You're not doing secondary reporting, you're looking at the original data. Of course, the data itself can have problems. This happens all the time. It's, you just, you know, there are sites, there are data sites that are more reliable than others, like yours. So, you know, you learn with time, like where, you know, Etherscan, for example, we know is to be relatively reliable. There are other sites, which I'm not going to call out here, which are known to be less reliable. So that's one thing, is just finding the accurate sources. One of the good things about the blockchain and crypto world is that it is a very decentralized and kind of crowdsourced environment. So one of the things that I've seen working at Longhash is that if there is a mistake in data or an analysis, people will find it very quickly. So that's kind of one of the nice things about this industry, is that there are a lot of people very attentively watching the news and watching analysis, and if there's a mistake, they will call you out so fast. So that's kind of a good thing, that there is a sort of crowd control, but yeah, it's definitely an issue. I think another one of the problems that we see in crypto media is that there's not a lot of objectivity. So there are definitely a lot of media sites out there that people have the perception that they are pushing one coin or promoting another coin or being paid by somebody, and that's something you have to really watch out for. At Longhash, we really try to be very, very objective. We don't have any dog in the fight. We're not trying to promote one coin over another. We're not rooting for the success of one company or another. So I think when you're looking at analysis of crypto, you always have to think about, does this person or does this media organization have an agenda? Are they pushing something? Are they on one side or another? Because that is something that you see in crypto media, that sometimes the reporting isn't as objective as it probably should be.
Yeah, and it's often the quality of the data. How do you distinguish that? Because if it's garbage in, it is garbage out. So how do you glean from the garbage and get the quality? How do you think about that?
So I think that it's important to mention that when you look at the blockchain, even though its nature gives us a lot of historical data and the data remains there, what we need to keep in mind is that most of the data, most of the transactions are going through exchanges, and exchanges are actually moving their hot wallets for security reasons. And so in order to have a good clustering, that is a good map of the blockchain, you need to do a constant work on identifying these clusters, on making sure that whenever an exchange is changing their hot wallet, moving their hot wallets, you're able to identify that. Because when you're looking at information that is moving in the blockchain, if you're not constantly doing research, which we are doing at Chainalysis, we have over 10 economists as well that are working on this, either research or actually investigations, that's impossible to keep track of what's going on. So it's extremely important to do research. It's extremely important also to make sure that you categorize the different types of entities and activities that are happening in the blockchain, and that you're able to flag them whenever it's needed. So I think that we shouldn't think of the blockchain as a source of information that is there and that's just information that we can take. It's constant work.
Yeah.
It's constant work.
That's a great point. You know that saying, action speaks louder than words. We are a purveyor of words sometimes when we share information, but it's the actions, and it requires that really investigative research that allows you to see the message in the actions of a lot of these participants. Matthew, you think about data differently.
Okay, whenever I look at stuff, I always like to break it down into two different sections. So that's the beauty of blockchain data, right? It's blockchain data. You run a node, and actually the entire data set is on your laptop, on your PC. So at a very low level, blockchain data, raw data is actually verifiable. You can actually verify if it's accurate or not. So that's on the very low level. But again, looking at a higher level, right? Then it goes back to what I'd like to call the alignment of incentives. The data source, right? So if it's coming for, again, it's following up from what Emily just mentioned again. So if I'm looking at information, right, I'm probably going to be asking myself a couple of questions when I'm looking at information from a specific source. When it goes down to the incentives, meaning that you probably find it's probably, I definitely like the source to be an independent source. Meaning that it's not skewed by any kind of financial incentives, or it's not skewed by any organization. So it's more like it's an independent entity providing information. So I
determine that.
So I think that's kind of interesting, right? So if you look at the lot of data providers out there right now, and they look at what they're providing, right? So it always comes out saying that yeah, they are doing this, it's for free and stuff like that. But I think if you kind of look deeper, you probably find that a lot of these projects, I'm not saying all, a lot of these projects are either backed by a token, or they are running perhaps an exchange behind, or they have X number of services that they want to provide and sell. So I think that's a little bit doesn't make it so independent in the sense that I think that the way the information will be displayed and the way the story will be told could be skewed in a different direction.
So it's the nuance, right? So that is one way to distinguish. But really what we're talking about here is media literacy from an audience point of view. As a reader or as a viewer, how do you also, you understand the agenda, but sometimes the quality of information is not bad. How do you protect yourself, your intellectual honesty? How do you preserve that?
I mean, you always try to keep yourself pure in the sense that I guess one of the things that I'm kind of happy of what we're doing at Etherscan is that we've tried to keep ourselves kind of clear in the sense that we don't have a token. We didn't do an ICO, and we don't run exchanges, we don't do a wallet, we don't do OTC, so that kind of ensures that the only thing that we can provide to our users would be information, and it has to be accurate because we have nothing else to sell other than providing information that is as close as possible to truth and as close as possible uncensored.
Yeah. Uncensored, as close as possible, but really it's up to, I think, everybody who's ingesting the information to also participate. I mean, please don't outsource your own responsibility to all of the platforms, including myself. It is a collaborative relationship. I believe in the 21st century, when it comes to information, journalism is collaborative, and it can't be outsourced. Having said that, the audience and the industry as an audience to understand the mass is also integral. Sentiment analysis is also integral. It allows us to understand our audience better, but it allows investors and projects in this room to understand the world and your customers better. How do you think about that?
About sentiment analysis specifically?
Yes.
Well, yeah, so I would say that in the crypto industry, sentiment analysis is particularly important because, as all of you know, crypto prices can be very mysterious, and one of the trademarks of the crypto industry is you look at something like Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin is largely set by the amount that people are willing to pay for it, right? That's the whole idea. It's not like there's, no central bank. I mean, this is the whole philosophy behind crypto, is that the prices are kind of set by the crowd. And so it is important to know what people are thinking. And so one of the things we do at Longhash is we look at how Twitter, for example, felt about Bitcoin. So we do Twitter level analysis where we look at tweets, if they are positive. We use deep learning to look at tweets to see if they are positive or negative about Bitcoin. And then we also look at not only positivity and negativity, but the strength of the emotion. So for example, are people passionate about Bitcoin or are they indifferent? So we measure this this is constantly being updated. And of course, with all these metrics, none of them are perfectly scientific, but I would argue that in the crypto industry, sentiment analysis is something you should particularly pay attention to.
I think that it could be also used as a proxy to look at where regulation might land as well. Especially when we live in a world where regulation is uncertain at this point. There isn't global regulation when it comes to cryptocurrency exchanges, for example, or custodians. We only have regulation at the local level, so that could be definitely used as a proxy for that. I believe, though, that we are at an infancy stage when it comes to understanding whether there is a direct impact to fluctuations in the market, so between sentiment analysis and fluctuations in the market. So I think that it's a very delicate topic. I think that it should be taken into consideration, especially when you look at open source intelligence information, which we gather as well. But we at Chainalysis focus more on data generated from investments. We focus on what whales have been doing, how they affected fluctuations, how investors in the space are affecting the market. So real, tangible data.
Yeah.
Actually, Ellen, that's just a really good point about regulation. One of the things that we've observed, and again, this is all not totally scientific, but if you're just looking at prices, one of the things that does appear to affect prices fairly directly is either regulation or fear of regulation. So, when some government or authority makes some statement that seems to be anti-crypto or is sending out confusing signals about crypto, usually there seems to be some sort of price movement. Again, you need to take that with a grain of salt, but for sentiment analysis, I think regulation is definitely something to pay attention to.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because at the end of the day, the price of crypto assets moving up or down is directly correlated to the sentiment of people feeling comfortable in using it.
Right.
And the fact is, some guy used it to buy pizza, ages ago, and now what is the real use cases of cryptocurrency other than it just being...
Right, and the question of will crypto survive, right? And so when you see governments, I think that's the big question, is is this going to survive? Can this withstand government suppression? It definitely has thus far, but I think that's something people are really watching out for. For example, when China cracked down, that was something that everybody's looking at and trying to see, what kind of effect it will have on the overall market.
Yeah. Matthew, you had a unique perspective on sentiment.
Again, I'm probably going to be summarizing things on the third one down the line. I think when it comes to, so we've seen this term being thrown around a lot, sentiment analysis.
Yeah.
So what does it mean, and what is its intrinsic value? In my opinion, at the end of the day, the only reason people are interested in sentiment analysis is people want to know which direction the market's heading. It's all about dollar and cents. And that's the way we see it. At this point in time, it's dollar and cents. So people are trying to gauge where the market is moving and trying to use all these tools that are available outside. So like on our end, of course, we do a lot of on-chain data analytics. So you have a lot of things like basic stuff, very techy stuff like number of active users, transactions, the movement of transactions, the flow of money, the number of unique addresses coming in, coming out, and so on. So these are all very raw data metrics, right? So people are trying to use these various data sources, right? Some coming from media, some coming from news, and they're trying to just jive all these two things into one special analytic platform that allows you to gauge whether the market is going up or going down. And then using that information, execute their trades accordingly.
Yes, I agree with that, but I think there's a second layer of it. Sentiment really can be political. In our world where regulators in a lot of the jurisdictions are in democratic countries, sentiment is critical in a democracy, and that often drives the direction of regulatory policy.
So I kind of agree, but I think we're still at a stage where it's very financial driven. The entire phrase, I don't think I mean, perhaps there is a small portion that has reached to where you just mentioned when it comes to, I think the majority of the crowd, the average person, it's all about that financial incentive at this point in time. It might change going forward to 2019. So 2019 is the year of bill regulations, right? But in 2018, it's all about which direction the market's going. It's very financial driven in 2018. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, the fact that there are people still participating in this space, regardless of a lack of financial incentives, should be a reflection of that. How does that play into sentiment? I don't know. But let's throw it out to you guys. Different tools, different ways to monitor and analyze data. How do each of you do it? Maybe provide some perspective and ideas for our audience. I'll just throw it out there.
Sure. Well, we have a few specific tools. For example, as I mentioned, we look at Twitter level analysis. We also have an address tracker where you can put in a Bitcoin address onto our site, and you can kind of look at the history of transactions and see if there is any link to dirty money or anything sketchy in the past. That's not to reveal the identity, obviously, of the addresses, but just to kind of look at the history and see if there's anything that someone should be aware of. And the reason we're doing that is because we believe that in order for cryptocurrency to achieve more mainstream adoption, there needs to be more trust, and people need to stop feeling that there's this kind of direct correlation with criminal activity. So we have a lot of different metrics. We look at, for example, the relationship between Tether and Bitcoin, and so we on our site we have a lot of live charts. But I think the most important thing that we're trying to do is, again, try to tell the larger stories behind the data, because one of the things that I've observed is that there's often a real split between the world of data scientists and the world of storytellers, right? They tend to be two separate groups. So you have journalists and storytellers who are not necessarily comfortable with data, and then you have data scientists who are very good with numbers but don't necessarily know how to analyze the trends behind that data. So that's kind of that's one area of media that I feel most excited about, like trying to merge those two worlds and trying to find a way to actually tell compelling stories about data, I think is one of the brighter spots in media.
Totally agree with you.
So I think that it's important to look at, to make sure that everyone understands that the blockchain is a semi-anonymous technology, so you only have limited information. When you look at blockchain.info, you have the entire address, the time, and day of the transaction, but there's no connection to the real world. This is exactly where Chainalysis comes in. Chainalysis makes the connection between real world entities and the blockchain, so how an exchange operates actually in the blockchain. So if you look at blockchain.info, for example, you see a lot of addresses or clustered addresses, but you do not know who's behind these addresses. This is where Chainalysis clusters addresses in over 12 categories and gives unique insights to law enforcement agencies, cryptocurrency businesses, and financial institutions to prevent money laundering, terrorist financing, and so on. So when you look at the solutions that are available, we have mainly two solutions. One is an investigative solution named Reactor, which really is focused on giving the possibility to law enforcement agencies to gather data and enforce investigations as fast as possible. And the second one is called Chainalysis KYT, Chainalysis Know Your Transaction. This is basically a unique compliance solution that gives the possibility to particularly cryptocurrency businesses to do two things. First of all, live transaction monitoring. So being able to evaluate in real time where to process a withdrawal or a deposit. And the second thing is customer risk scoring. That is understanding without having any personal KYC information, we do not have access to any source of that information. I think it's important to mention that. To basically understand what's the risk spread within an exchange when it comes to customers. These are some of the tools that we can offer, some of the solutions that we can offer to our customers.
Good stuff, Matthew.
Yeah, I think so. When you're talking about research, right? Go back to the basics. So I think in the traditional research world, you have two different categories of research: your quantitative and qualitative. So combine all of this. On the quantitative portion, we have a lot of raw data; it's all out there. And on the qualitative portion, we have a lot of new services and like what you guys are doing. And like this, combine both of these different sectors of research, right, and come up with your own conclusion.
All right, and I'm going to participate and say, my top tool is you. You've actually got the best tool. It's right here. It's right here. It smells, doesn't pass your sniff test. There's something there. So be intellectually interested and curious. Think about information from the point of view that is either agenda-driven, that allows you to understand the context. But I want to thank all of our panelists to provide, and thank you, each of you, for helping provide a broader context to how to think about information. Please give a hand to our panelists.
Thank you.
And we invite you to continue to be intellectually curious. Head on out, talk to each other, 20-minute coffee break. We'll see you back here in 20 minutes.